They said her birth brought death. They spat when she passed and warned children to stay away. But when the mighty chief of their African village collapsed with no cure in sight, they came crawling to the same girl they once feared. And she healed him with knowledge passed down in whispers, not with power, but with mercy. This story will move you beyond words. Subscribe to Real African Tales by HHE for powerful, emotional African stories rooted in our people and our truth. Tell us in the comments, have you ever been called a name you didn't deserve? In a dusty African village surrounded by baobab trees and red earth, a dark-skinned African baby girl was born under the cold stare of the full moon. Her mother died moments after childbirth, and the old midwives, wrapped in faded traditional wrappers, looked at each other with dread. She has wide, silent eyes, they whispered. The eyes of the spirits? The newborn's cries never came, only her deep stare and the strange stillness in the hut made of dried mud and straw. From that day forward, villagers began to fear her. As the child named Nia grew, her dark skin glowed in the sun, and her tightly braided hair was adorned with old beads passed down by her grandmother. Mama Yali, a wrinkled dark-skinned African woman, who lived alone at the edge of the village forest. Nia walked barefoot along dusty paths, her faded wrapper dragging as goats and chickens scattered before her. Children were warned to avoid her. Mothers clutched their babies when she passed. Even the village elders, sitting on carved wooden stools under the shade of the sacred Iroko tree, whispered that the girl with the quiet face and strange silence was cursed. But strange things happened around her. Birds perched calmly on her shoulder. Snakes slithered past her but never bit. Rain fell only when she cried. Her hut, made from sun-baked mud and thatched roof, always had smoke rising from it, not just from firewood, from herbs and roots that she pounded every morning with her bare, dark-skinned hands. She learned not from people, but from the wind, the leaves, and the ancestral voices in her dreams. She watched from a distance as African market women shouted prices over baskets of yam and cassava. She listened when an old healer crushed tree bark to treat fever. She never forgot, yet they still called her witch, serpent, death child. Young boys threw stones at her. Even grown men spat when she passed. But Nia never fought. She kept listening, learning, waiting, until the day the great Chief Bako, a dark-skinned warrior in lion-hide robes, collapsed in the middle of the yam festival, his eyes rolling back and foam pouring from his mouth. His tall body thrashed in the red dust as villagers screamed and musicians dropped their drums. He was carried into the great hut built from stone and wood, guarded by fierce African warriors with painted shields. Every known healer came, men with cowries, women with calabashes, yet none could save him. For 7 nights his wives wept, and his children fanned his body as he groaned in pain. On the 8th night, the sacred baobab dropped all its leaves in a single gust of wind. The oldest village elder, a wrinkled African man with white chalk on his face, said, "This is no illness. This is a battle of spirits, and only one touch by them can win it." The crowd went silent. Slowly, unwillingly, heads turned to the forest's edge, to the hut where the smoke never stopped, to the girl they had called cursed. She came at dawn, bare feet coated in dew, and earth, wrapped in a deep red wrapper tied over her shoulder, her black braids hanging long and neat. Her dark-skinned hands held a calabash bowl steaming with crushed herbs, and her calm face showed no fear. The 3 warriors who fetched her, tall black men with spears and anxious eyes, stood back as she walked through the center of the African village that once cursed her. Market women peered from behind reed fences. Children clung to their mothers. Even the chickens seemed to hush. Inside the chief's hut, Nia stepped past carved drums and ivory stools, past cowhide mats and walls smeared with protective clay. She knelt beside the dying chief, his skin gray, lips cracked, eyes shut. His wives, dressed in bright African wrappers and golden earrings, sobbed nearby. Elders made way without words. Nia touched his forehead with 3 fingers and whispered in her grandmother's tongue. Then for 3 days and nights she worked. She crushed roots with her fists, boiled leaves in clay pots, smeared pastes onto his chest, and sang to the spirits under her breath. The chief groaned, the fire hissed. On the 4th day, as the rooster crowed, Chief Bako opened his eyes. He spoke. He called for water and said, "Where's the girl?" The village exploded with cries of joy. That same evening, the chief stood before the entire village, his voice hoarse but strong. With his staff raised high and his leopard skin robe on his shoulders, he called Nia forward, and before all, he knelt. A chief knelt to a girl once called a witch. The people gasped. Market women dropped their calabashes. Warriors lowered their eyes. He declared her daughter of the spirits, mother of healing. And though he offered her land, riches, and a home inside the palace, Nia declined. She returned to her hut by the forest, her head held high, her wrapper fluttering in the breeze. From that day, barefoot African children ran to her for stories. African women brought her herbs to bless. Warriors guarded her path. No one called her witch again. Her name became legend, not because she fought back with fire, but because she answered hatred with healing. And under every full moon they now sing her name across the hills, Nia. The girl who saved the chief, the girl who turned fear into mercy.